Welcome to Catching Up to FI, a podcast on mindset, money, and life for late starters of any age on their journey to financial independence. I'm Bill, and I'm a late starter.
I'm Jackie, and I'm also a late starter, and we're your host. We're here to help you on your journey to financial independence, no matter where you're starting.
We're going to talk to experts, other late starters, and explore topics related to our mission.
Join us as we catch up to FI together.
Hello, and welcome back to Catching Up to FI. I'm Bill Yount, my co-host Jackie Cummings-Goski. And today, or this week, there was an article in the New York Times Magazine that we wanted to bring up because it seemed to have a controversial play in our arena. Jackie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. We're talking on May 10th. This is 2 days after the huge New York Times Magazine article came out. I say huge because if you go look at the article on the New York Times webpage, there's like 1,100 comments. But we've been having a lot of interesting conversations about it.
Yeah, well, we're not alone today, Jackie. We have an old friend. We're back together with an old friend, Amy Coroso. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Bill. Hi, Jackie. Thank you. I'm excited to be talking to you.
Yeah, well, it's good to see you again. Last we talked, it was Guardians of the Galaxy or Avocado Toast and Guardians of the Galaxy. That was your episode. And we talked about your book and your passion for helping women regroup on their finances and get control of their financial lives to sort of in the direction of financial peace and security. I think you used the word security. And you're on a mission to do that. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but let's talk about this article. Amy, you read this just today. What did you think?
I think you know, Bill, that my philosophy around money is to not shame people on what they want to spend it on. And I think that's part of the reason that my podcast episode was called Avocado Toast and Guardians of the Galaxy. There's this big, shaming culture around what people spend their money on. And one of those things is ultra expensive, $11 avocado toast at Starbucks or wherever it is that you want to eat. My belief is that nobody can tell somebody else what their values around money are. That's the bottom line. So we can give advice and we can coach and we can say, do you have your basic needs met? Are you providing for yourself? Are you providing for your children? Do you have an emergency fund? Are you investing? Is your debt paid down? But at the end of the day, we are working right now for the money we're receiving right now. And we need to take care of our future selves. That is very true. But we also need to take care of our present selves. And if we are depriving ourselves from the things that make us happy, that make life worth living, that make it worth going to our jobs every day, and if that thing happens to be a handbag, an avocado toast, a giant Guardians of the Galaxy Thanos glove, which is what my then 7-year-old decided to spend his money on, then who is somebody else to say yes or no?
Well, this article is titled, and this title is actually quite controversial in itself, Your Neighbors Are Retiring in Their 30s. Why Can't You? The subtitle is Meet the Schemers and Savers, and Savers obsessed with ending their careers as early as possible. And the title picture of Alex Wong, a firee, is him with a flamethrower and a Lamborghini in gold on the front page. I mean, is there something more clickbaity in this world than this title and picture?
Now, Bill, so I want to say, so the guy's name is, let me make sure I have it right, Alan Wong. And reason why it got so much attention in like our FIRE community was that the journalists talked to a lot of us at Economy. So we thought it would have a whole different flavor and angle to it. Now, again, that was our fault because once you talk to a journalist, they can angle it any way they wanted to. But when we saw the finished product, we didn't know it would be in that type of wrapper. And that's why that headline seems so odd. But in that headline and that image, there's a lot of stuff in the middle about FIRE, financial independence, in our community that we all know that has simple wealth building strategies and the tenets of FIRE and things like that. And it just seems like this image and the headline just didn't fit with that. And I think that was the main issue for a lot of people.
Amy, what did you
Would you
think? What
agree?
was your perception of the article here, knowing that we're in that messy middle? We got lost in the middle of this article in a way, but we are the average Joe that is seeking fire or retiring on time. Did you feel that you were represented in this article, or was it way off base?
I mean, I feel like I was represented by the Jackie part of the article.
And the Bill part,
But-
Bill had a great quote in there too.
And Bill, yes. But the reality is that not everybody is following the same path and not everybody is on the same journey. This guy, Alan Wong, that they interviewed, he's much younger, right? Then all of us, he started this journey at least 20 plus years before I did. I think that I would not spend my money on a rose gold Lamborghini. But if this is what he wants to spend his money on, that's his money. And I'm trying to not go into this like judging anybody again, like what they're spending their money on, because who knows how I would be spending my money now if I had started when I was 25 and I was able to retire at 30 or 35. I have no idea. I'm here, I'm a divorced mom with 2 kids, and I'm trying to retire somewhat early so I can still enjoy the rest of my life. So my path is a lot different than Alan's. But I think that the juxtaposition was weird. I thought it was weird to mesh these 2 things into one article, to be honest with you.
I kind of thought that too, but I think your feedback is a very balanced way to look at it because, and I try to do the same thing, not judge a book by its cover, not be turned off enough where I wouldn't want to read a little more. And honestly, if you start getting into the article, you do start to learn a little bit about him, that he lost his father when he was very young. His father committed suicide. He watched his parents toil at work. So he has a set of experiences when he was very, very young. So I just feel like it would be unfair to judge him too quickly. So I definitely wanted to go through the entire article. And honestly, my eyes were open about this guy and some of the stuff with a lot of the fire people that we know talking about what we consider more sensible things were in the middle. And it did seem a little weird to put these together, but we all have biases, including the journalists, including me, including Bill, including you, Amy. And I think that kind of shows through. And if somebody wants to go through the article, but they just hated the headline and hated the visuals, there is an audio version. You can click play and you can just listen to it. And I did both. And honestly, I got a lot of value out of reading it, not just from seeing my friends and not just from seeing myself, but all the other things that was wrapped around it, particularly, Alan Wong. And they said he developed this app and that's what made him a bunch of money. And it was so interesting. I'm looking it up, but his company or the app was called Rego Apps. And he has a huge presence on Instagram and all that and his Lamborghinis. But I'm with you, Amy. If that's what's important to him and that's what's valuable to him, it's not for us to judge. Mm-hmm. So I didn't get as turned off as some people may have. And I definitely wanted to read the article and appreciated that there was some balance that showed things through a different lens and different approaches. So his was not the only one. Imagine if all of us decided not to talk to the journalist and not to contribute to the story. This would be the only thing people would see. So do you want to be a part of it and represent a certain voice? Or do you just want to sit back and complain? So I got value from reading it, and we can't change the direction or influence the direction of the article. The journalist is going to do what they're going to do. The publication is going to do what they're going to do. But I enjoyed reading it. I did. And she was a good journalist in terms of her writing style and putting together all of the information for the article. So, Bill, you're asking us, but I'm curious what you think.
I do agree with you more than you think. This article, as Frank Vasquez, one of our other guests, said, is bookended by sensational stories. In the middle is sort of the meat and the reality. It might get lost a little bit because it's a long article, and you got to want to stay the course. Just like with investing, you got to stay the course and read the whole thing to see a balanced view. On the back end of the article is Sam Donigan, the financial samurai, and he led a life that was not too different from the flame-throwing Alan Wong. And what is his fire number? $300,000 a year. People can't reach that. Our audience can't necessarily reach that. These are numbers that don't make sense for the average Joe that's stuck in the middle. And we want to get the message out there to our folks that as a late starter, which was highlighted in this article, where have you seen an article that late starters, the lost generation, Generation X, the 40s, the 50-year-olds are in there with the 30-year-olds? And that's the nature of our spectrum of FI. I mean, we span all monetary values, all age groups, and you can feel late at any time. Obviously, Alan and Sam weren't late, but own a piece of territory in this article. Becky's quoted there, you're quoted there, Frank Vasquez is quoted there, Diana Miriam's quoted there. She spent a lot of time with us at Economy. She sat down with us for half an hour. She did do a great job. It is well written, and I would just encourage people to read the whole thing and step back.
Yeah. That would be the biggest key. And Bill, to your point, I wanted to read a certain excerpt from the article that kind of got buried in the middle. So I want to highlight it here. The journalist is saying, to my surprise, a sizable portion of the FIRE crowd at Economy was older. This wasn't so surprising to Bill Yon, a 58-year-old retired physician who recently started up a podcast with Koski, myself, another friend, Becky Heptig, that speaks to older demographics. And this is the quote that they use from you, Bill. The average American is a late starter, Yant told me. That's just who we are, living in this consumption society and not having the mentality of saving often or early. And end quote. And then she says, and these things are no longer 9 to 5, 40 years gold watch, the way that it was for our parents' generation. And then another quote from you is, I'm not in the gold watch generation. Gen X got lost, got forgotten. Did you feel that way in the placement of this article and our part as late starters?
Amy, I'll turf that question to you.
I don't think that that piece was lost in the article. The juxtaposition was weird, but I do think the journalist is trying to show two extremes, right? Because obviously the Alan Wong example is quite extreme. Not all 25 or 30-year-olds have this amount of money and can retire. And the FIRE movement does tend to be extreme in its thinking. People do get very set in their ways that this is the way that things need to be done, and then may have a harder time accepting that other people are doing things different ways with their money. And Bill recently posted something about breaking the taboo about talking about money, and that we should be having conversations around money, like what are people earning and what is your debt and how much savings do you have? So this article at the very least has different people from different perspectives about money, from different walks of life, talking about money. They're doing exactly what you were encouraging people to do, Bill. So when we get people finally to break that taboo and to be in the New York Times, we have to be very careful about starting to point fingers about, is this the right way? Is this the right way? Because it's a conversation. That's what we want, right? We want people talking about money. And guess what? Here we are, the three of us, talking about the article, talking about money. It's working.
And I think if anything, that's what this article did. And when I said in the middle, I guess I just meant it was inside the middle of the article versus the headline at the very top or the ending paragraph. We were in the middle in terms of how the article was organized to begin with. But it's nonetheless, you're right. It's valuable information and it's a conversation starter. We're not all going to agree on everything because we have different experiences. We have different ways of thinking. And clearly the journalist, she has her own way of thinking as well. So we got to be fair about that.
Well, she did a great job balancing this overall, if you look at it in toto, because the cult of FI is really a rainbow, right? It's a spectrum. And we have extreme ends of the spectrum, and then we have that middle of the spectrum of light. And that's where we sit, in that messy middle, in that more gray zone, if you want to call it that, but it's colorful. And you've just got to acknowledge all the colors of the rainbow. Your financial story is not my financial story, is not yours. There are commonalities that help us get to where we want to go, as Amy always says, with our own values as how we want to spend our money. I do want to bring up another quote from the article, actually, because one of our friends, Frank Vasquez, sat on a panel with you, Jackie, that did a case study with one of the audience members who's actually a very active member in our community. I don't think she'll be shy, and we're going to probably have her on the show. It's Krista Kim. And she looked for help and laid her dirty laundry bare in front of 500 people. I mean, that takes guts. I mean, this is down and dirty numbers of debts, expenses, all the nasty stuff that hides in our financial closets. And Frank got up there and said, when asked a question about, so what's her real story? He said, wait a second. No, don't you see this? Krista was a teenage mom who grew up in poverty. We are looking right now at a map of a hero's journey. That is the story of our audience, isn't it, Jackie? The Catching Up to Fi crowd. We are looking at a hero's journey.
It absolutely is. And our friend Frank Vasquez, he couldn't have said it better. And Krista was so brave in front of 500 people. I mean, we worked with her for many, many weeks to bring this together, but it was epic. I can't think of any other conference or gathering where they would do this massive case study. She had 4 CFP professionals, a tax professional, and an attorney, Frank, working with her. And we wanted to just put this in a more cleaned up, organized, buttoned up way so that everybody could see live how this happens. And we were so happy to have her being willing to share and be so transparent. So it was epic what we did. And then Frank put it well by saying that this is a hero's journey.
Hey, Catching Up to Fi audience, this is Bill Young telling you that we have some great sponsors here on our show these days. Jeremy Schneider, who's been on the show and is the founder of Personal Finance Club, has created a couple of great courses that he is giving to our audience at a $30 discount. Click on the link in the show notes to get this deal, and you can have the course, How to Money Like a Millionaire, which normally is $99, but you can get it for $69 using the code CUTOFI if you click on the link in our show notes. The other course that he does is called Build Wealth by Investing in Index Funds. And again, this course is only $99 normally, and it's such a great value already, but you can get $30 off and pay $69 for this course as well. Now, why not take them both? Buy his Ultimate Personal Finance Bundle, which again is normally $149, but you get $30 off the bundle if you use the code CUTOFI. Go to the show notes and find the link for these courses and get started on your personal finance journey. Well, not everything in the article is accurate either, Jackie, right?
Oh, yeah.
Journalists don't get it right 100%. Apparently, I wasn't told. I'm the last one to find out, and it's in the New York Times. I'm retired. I had no idea that I was retired. I mean,
so you know what? Maybe we can get them behind the scenes on how that works. So we talked to the journalist, and that was back in March during economy. And then several weeks later, we don't know when the article is going to be published. We don't know. We didn't know anything about it, but we're willing to chat with her. Well, then a fact checker comes behind the journalist, which is something that I'm glad that they do. It's a professional, very large media outlet, so they should. So they sent you a series of questions to verify, and they sent me a series of questions to verify. So you said they didn't ask you about whether or not you were retired?
I don't know. It got lost in the wash. It just did.
I mean, for me, I remember the questions, okay? And some of them, I would say 90% of them, they had it correct. And I had to go through, I had like 15 questions. And I had to go through each of them and say, yes, that's correct. Yes, that's correct. Or no. Well, one of the things they asked, and they, looks like most of them, they did correct in the article. But there was one question that said, you were on food stamps when you were growing up. And that wasn't true. So I said, no. I said, I wasn't on food stamps, but we're on the free lunch program. And it ended up saying that I was on food stamps. I mean, it didn't change the essence of the point. I was poor growing up. But as a fact, that wasn't exactly correct, but they're not perfect. They talk to a lot of us. And I just noticed that that was one of the fact checking questions that I got. And it ended up that way anyway. And it was harmless. And it still kept the essence of what was going on, which was that I was poor growing up. But yeah, the fact checker, it's great that they have a fact checker, but like you said, they don't get everything right 100% of the time.
Oh, I'm enjoying being retired for a nanosecond.
Yeah, there you go.
It's my first nanosecond of fame in the New York frickin' times.
Yeah, I was about to say, maybe she just had a premonition about you being retired, and I've been nudging you like, come on, Bill.
And the one thing she didn't do too, that I'm like, oh, you can't have everything in there. She didn't label the podcast. She didn't say we started a podcast, but she didn't say,
Yeah.
this is its name.
Bill, I was thinking about that, and I'm like, well, Bill, her job is not to promote our stuff,
Yes,
right?
it is. Yes, it is.
You had to try it for sure. Now, I can say, and don't get jealous, but she did mention my book, Fire for Dummies. So I appreciated that, but I didn't know if she was going to mention it or not. They have no obligation to do so. I mean, she could have included a link going to Amazon saying buy the book here, but I knew she wasn't going to do that. Okay.
Yeah, it could have been very easy. A link to our podcast under Catching Up to FI. There are no links in the article. This is an online article. That's true. That's interesting that they don't link things for you to make our lives as we want to get our message out to people outside of the FI community. I mean, Amy, isn't that your goal with your women's movement? Is let's get people that aren't in the bubble of this is where we're talking about money. Let's bring those people that don't talk about money in. And this is an opportunity to do that, right?
100%. I mean, the biggest goal is to get women who are not currently thinking critically about their money to start thinking critically about their money and really teach them why they should be thinking critically about their money. But it's obviously always easier to get to people who are already in that mindset and paying attention. But I think the women who are not thinking about it are really the women that we need to get to for a million different reasons.
Well, we're getting there. I mean, we're in mass media. This Catching Up to FI thing, this started as a twinkle in my eye years ago and, launched a little over a year ago, is in the New York Times Magazine in one form or another. And it's fabulous to feel that there's a little bit of a reach there. And I hope that there's one person who finds us because of this and finds that their life is altered, their trajectory, their financial trajectory is altered by what we're trying to do, reaching the late starter audience. The interesting thing to me about this is we can't seem to shed that white tech bro origin of the modern day FI. We've evolved so far beyond this. That's like ancient history these days, but it still keeps coming back up. Can you ladies tell us for a minute, what the original face of FIRE was and how it maybe has evolved to the present day face of FIRE?
I'll let Amy go first.
Oh, you guys are so much more knowledgeable about the FIRE movement than I am. But yes, when I think FIRE, what did you call it? The white-faced tech bro, Bill?
Close enough.
Yeah.
They can't even shave, okay? They don't even have a beard.
When I think FIRE, the first image that comes to mind for me is Mr. Money Mustache. So I do think that FIRE is often associated with a more like male-dominant presence. But I do think that it is slow. The demographic is changing. I think you mentioned earlier when we were talking that there's a lot more women participating in your Facebook group. I certainly have a ton of women reaching out to me who want to be more involved with their finances, who want to have a better understanding about how money works and how to manage it and to reach financial security. And I don't think that's necessarily unique to the FIRE movement necessarily, but I do think more women are interested in saving for their future and retiring and are also late starters. I mean, most of the women and the demographic that come to me are between 35 and 55. So I don't know if I would consider 35 a late starter, but certainly, any past 40, which includes me, is, I would think, a late starter. But I do see that women are taking their money much more seriously and are ready to learn. That's my experience.
Yeah, and for me, I'm well acquainted with the FIRE community. I consider myself a big part of the FIRE community.
You wrote the book.
Yeah, I wrote
Literally.
the book of FIRE. FIRE for Dummies. Yeah, I get it at Amazon. So when I started learning about the FIRE community, it came on my radar around 2014, 2015. And I can tell you that it was what ends up in the media and what stereotypes are about. Typically, there's some reason that came to be. And there's a little bit of truth in it. So in the early days, when I'm discovering it in 2015, it was, like you said, primarily white, young, high income. It seemed like a lot were engineers. They were in technology. And a lot of times they had a partner that also had a high income and no kids. Like that would have been the avatar. And so for me, little girl, Black girl that grew up in poverty, that seemed like a flamethrower with a guy standing in front of a Lamborghini to me, because it seemed so pie in the sky to me. But as I'm digging into it, and I have this curious mindset, so I like to get answers. And as I'm digging into it, I had to work really hard and dig really deep to find the pieces that applied to me and my life as a Black single mom, divorced single mom. And so I had to learn early on that I couldn't just toss everything to the side that wasn't like me. I would still go through it. Podcast was like my main way of learning. I'm an auditory and visual learner. So I would listen to a lot of podcasts. Now, again, they weren't just like me, but I would listen to the whole thing. And even if I pulled out one thing that helped me or applied to me, it was worth it. So I learned not to throw out things just based on the surface. And that's when I saw this article, it reminded me of that, how different everyone else looked and their situation, from financial to whatever other, advantages they might have had. It was hard, but I pushed through it and I still was able to get something from it. So I remember what the FIRE community was early on. Now, many, many years down the road, I'm applying things to me, adjusting it for my situation. And that was the only way I was able to make movement with my situation, because I was not like a lot of the faces I was seeing.
No, I think you're one of the many faces of FIRE now that we all look to, because there's so many different flavors of FIRE now. It's like an ice cream store.
What, I'm chocolate and you're vanilla? No,
there's Coast FIRE. There's lean FIRE.
Yeah, fat FIRE, which was all over the article. A lot of fat FIRE.
Well, that was super morbid obese FIRE. I mean, that was way beyond fat FIRE. But there's so many different levels and approaches to it. Coast FIRE, you get to your number, and it will grow to your retirement number without adding anything else to it, right? Lean FIRE, that's where you're kind of shaving it close with your $1 million maybe and $40,000 a year or less than that. And you have your needs met, but there's not any excess to go to maybe the want side of the equation. What other flavors of FIRE are there? I'm missing them.
Barista FIRE?
Oh, Barista
Did you mention
FIRE.
Barista?
Tell me about Barista FIRE. Which one's that one?
Oh, gosh. Just so you know, I'm not a fan of labels. I feel like I wear a bunch of labels already. But these are out there, so I had to put it in my book, but it was just one little chart. Barista FIRE, the name got its name from someone that just wants to cut out the corporate rat race, get away from that high pressure, high powered job, and do something that's a little more laid back, but still they get a little bit of a paycheck. They get maybe health insurance and things like that at a place like Starbucks. So that's where that comes from, where you just do a little something to help offset things, but you no longer want that big, high powered, high pressure job, and you're trading it in for something that's a little more subdued.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, Jackie, because I think the face of retirement is changing. What retirement looks like for people now is changing. It doesn't always look like I am not working anymore. Today is my last day at work and I'm never going back to work again, and I'm just going to collect my pension or my 401k. A lot of people are working in retirement, and maybe not always because they have to, but sometimes because they want to. They're going to pursue something that they enjoy doing that might pay a lot less than what they were doing in their corporate job, but it brings them a lot of joy and meaning to their life. Maybe it's just part-time. Maybe sometimes it is for the extra paycheck too. But retirement doesn't mean today what it used to mean. There's a lot of people are exploring a lot of other options around what retirement looks like now.
Yeah, I am so with you on that, Amy. So when people try to put their own idea of retirement on me or anyone else, and they might say, oh, that's not retirement. Well, that might not be retirement for you, but don't put your measuring stick on me. I've got my own measuring stick, and simply retirement is not what it used to mean. And when we acknowledge that, we don't need to get caught up on the nuances of it. And I love the idea that I'm not clocking in at a day job. That is retirement to me. I retired from corporate America. Now the things we do, I'm hanging out with you and Bill because I want to, because I like you guys and you make me smile, not because it's somebody else said, this is your metric and this is what you need to do. Big difference.
Yeah, well, actually, this week we invited a mystery guest, kind of mystery. He's a little bit clothed in mystery, but Jeff York's coming on. He doesn't like the word retired at all. He
calls it graduate. Is that what he calls
graduated. He has another word for it, too. He actually hates the word retired. And that
he does.
gets batted around a lot in the community because there's the FIRE, then there's the FI is the important part, and the RE is really not. And people are discarding the RE.
Yeah, and I'm not one of those people. I mean, my opinion, I need the RE. I needed to separate from our corporate job, but I don't discount anyone that feels like they should drop it. Then drop it if that's for it. But there's plenty of people that they do need to decouple from their job and actually retire. Maybe that's a big reset for them. Who knows? I needed the reset. I needed the RE. Absolutely. We are super excited for one of our new partners. It's called Create Your Own Financial Plan. And this is a comprehensive video course by our friend Cody Garrett. He's with Measure Twice Money, and he's been on our podcast. And we love this course that he has put out. So if you are a true do-it-yourselfer and you've been wanting to put together a financial plan, check him out. I've gone through the course myself, and I have nothing but praise for it and the quality of work that Cody Garrett does. Cody Garrett is a CFP, so you're getting the mind and the experience of a CFP that you can trust. You just need to go to measuretwicemoney.com/catching up, and you will get $100 off this course. And again, that is Measure Twice Money Catching Up.
Yeah, I mean, we have several shows with Fritz Gilbert and others on how do you build, other than just the numbers and the money, how do you build or bridge your life to that separation from maybe your primary job or role in life into a new role. I mean, your retirement is all about financial literacy and passion for correcting the wrongs of our past. And Amy's passion is going to be about helping women achieve the financial fluency that she's achieved. She works a 9-to-5 job as a school administrator in the public school system. And she does this all as a side hustle outside of her regular life. But I could imagine, and I might be wrong, tell me if I am, Amy, that your idea of retirement is being busier than ever with your passion for women in finance.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you could say, what does retirement look like for you? I mean, I guess eventually it looks like just sitting on the beach having a daiquiri or something. But right now I feel like this is just where my heart is. I would love to not be punching in and out somewhere for somebody else and doing this full time, just educating women, getting to as many women as I can, teaching them why it's important for them to understand their money, how it works, where it's going, and most importantly, what their own values are around their money and what their mindset is around their money. Because I think your money touches everything in your life, from your basic survival needs to your biggest dreams, right? Food, clothing, shelter, also that massive dream vacation you want to take, also taking care of your children and putting gas in your car, and retirement, right? It touches everything, and it's very emotional. And we all carry around a lot of subconscious stories about what money is, what it means to us. And I think that there's also, as you know, Bill, because we've talked about this a lot, there's an unspoken understanding in Western culture that women are valued less than men financially. We've had conversations, I think, about how women still earn less I think for my numbers are correct, for white women, compared to white men, it's 80 cents on the dollar. For Black women, that goes down to around like 67 cents on the dollar. And for Latina women, it's around 58 cents on the dollar.
Yeah, it still exists. We haven't made a whole lot of progress with that.
2% in 2 decades. That's the progress that we've made.
Oh, gosh. That's not good.
Well, if you look at Caitlin Clark and Wemby there, what's the starting salary of an NBA rookie for men? It was $12.1 million. What's the starting salary for Caitlin Clark? No, you have to take into account her Nike contract, but she was at like $780,000 for the season. It's a huge glaring disparity that makes the point.
That's one of the most modern examples. Absolutely. And there's one sentence I also wanted to read from the article that speaks to what Amy was saying. And these are the words of the journalist. Simply learning to understand your own finances can feel, and she says, several fires told me, like acquiring a secret weapon. Secret weapon is in quotes. And someone, I like to use the word superpower, when someone else posted and said, yeah, I'd say superpower, but this was an impactful statement. This was a very important part of the article, this whole concept that learning about your finances, that's a superpower.
Yeah, I mean, and a future guest of ours was also quoted in the article. Alan Donigan and his wife Katie are coming on the show.
Yes.
And they were at Economy, and they talked to Amy Wong, the reporter, as well. And I find what they said also very important to our community. They say, I think people can accumulate money to the detriment of their health and happiness, says Alan Donigan.
Yeah.
And they live a nomadic lifestyle, and they coach fire newbies towards their resignation letters by, quote, trying to show money as a tool to create your version of an extraordinary life, end quote. And I've never met a more positive person in my life than Alan Donigan, the rebel entrepreneur. His wife maybe comes a close second, because the two of them are on fire.
I agree with you that totally.
I look forward to our conversation with them on the show. But
yeah, we'll have to have him flesh that out a little bit more.
Well, it goes to show you the kinds of people that are at a conference like Economy. And I've been trying to get Amy to come to Economy for 2 years now. And maybe I can put a little peer pressure on her on this show to throw it down. The gauntlet is thrown right here, right now. See me next year at Economy in March, Amy, if you can all make that happen. And if not, I'll help you make it happen.
All right.
Yeah.
Economy.
And Amy, I live in Ohio, so come visit me and I'll get you some Skyline chili dogs that you just cannot resist.
I'm in Connecticut. It's a 9-hour drive, Jackie. I could be there by tomorrow.
Okay. And you always got a place to sleep. Just you hit me up and I'm like, come on, girl, here's the garage code. Go on in, even if I'm not here. So a little bit of language that they used that was a little weird, but I'll just read this part and see what you guys think. So she says that the original FIRE doctrine revolves around delay of gratification. Save your money, ideally 50 to 70% of each paycheck, instead of spending it immediately. And when you've amassed enough of a nest egg, quit your job and take the rest of your life for yourself. So I like the essence of what she's saying there, but like the doctor, I remember putting something like that in my book, and I was clearly saying there's no doctrine that you need to sign to be a part of the FIRE community. Like no one owns FIRE. No one's the leader of FIRE. And then when she's mentioning the 50 to 75%, I feel like that's been the number that is always out there. I never got to a 50% savings rate. So that's a very broad assumption. And I think I was kind of hard on myself trying to get to that. It doesn't necessarily require that. You just got to look at the whole picture. But the 50 to 75% savings rate, I think, might turn some people off, and they might feel like, oh my God, that's huge. I will never get there. And the whole idea, like our friend Sarah Catherine that wrote But First Save 10, if you start there, you just continually escalate it as your income increases, as your salary increases. If you start moving it up, that will give you the progress that you need to at least start moving in the right direction. The most I got to, I think, was like a 40% savings rate. So I never got to that elusive 50 to 75% savings rate.
I didn't either, and we haven't either. We hover between 30 and 40%. And it depends on the year. It would be a fun goal to get to 50, but we found that it becomes a little deprivational to push it past 40. The car gets going a little too fast. It starts shimmying, and we're like, no, that's not good. We don't need to speed to down this road. And I actually, as you guys know, I cut back on work in order to lengthen my career beyond burnout. There's so many factors that go into your savings rate. It is not just a number. Certainly, if you want to, and we all know from the Shockingly Simple Math article that Mr. Money Mustache, our friend Pete Adney, talked about on a recent show, the math is straightforward. If you save 50%, you're done in 12 years. It's give or take. And you did it in 10, Jackie, on a savings rate less than 50. So there's other things that you did, and we'll hone in on some of those nuances maybe in future shows. But you've got to have some mile markers, and you've got to know where you're going to get. And so you can be patient with yourself in that process of getting there, in that messy middle that I'm still in. I got another 5 or 6 years.
Well, look, not according to the New York Times.
You're done, Bill. You're out.
Well, I'll just let myself be retired there. Everybody got a little confused there. They didn't realize that a retiree was doing this podcast. Nope, I'm still a working student.
I wanted to just comment quick about the 50 to 75% rate. I think somebody new to learning about FIRE, that sounds like a very intimidating number to just throw out there and say, oh, that's what you need to start today. You got to start saving 50 to 75%. I think everyone has to remember it's a process. Everyone's starting somewhere different. Some people may have no debt. Some people may have a lot of debt. Some people like you and me, Jackie, may be single parents trying to support kids and run a household on your own. So, just said, oh, just start with 10. Yes.
Yeah. Sarah Catherine. And the book is called But First Save 10.
Yeah.
So starting out with that.
Start somewhere, right? Yeah. What did we say, Bill? I think last time I was on, it's important to just start, right? We're starters. You got to start somewhere and don't compare. You have to be very careful. Don't compare yourself to where somebody else is or where somebody else is starting, because we all are starting from different places.
I remember that. I got to go back to your episode because there's a quote in there that we've got to put on the website. You were on it. We were almost there. I just can't. It's on the tip of my tongue. But you said something that is sort of a mantra for the late starters.
That everybody's focused on the late starter, but we're all starters, and we should all be congratulating ourselves for starting.
That's the quote. Yeah, that's the quote.
That was the one. Thank you.
Well, and a little other nuance to what you were saying, Amy, is that some people calculate their savings rate differently. Some people do it on net. Some people do it on gross. Mm-hmm. Some people include their employer match. Some people don't. I did sort of put that in the book, and the main thing is just to be consistent so that you can see your progress. Mm-hmm. So I don't care if you use net, I don't care if you use gross or whatever, but track your progress with the whole thing. And Bill, you were mentioning that Mr. Money Mustache was mentioned in the article because he is obviously one of the most recognizable voices in the community. But you know who they left out? That to me, you can't write a book, an article, or anything about FIRE without mentioning?
Your friend, Jael Collins. They did not mention Jael Collins.
I know. I'm like, how can you write an article and not mention Jael Collins? But she did include, she said, Jacob Lund Fisker, she mentioned. But let me read that one. So it was just kind of funny.
He wrote the book Early Retirement Extreme. He goes back way to the beginning. That's the dark ages of...
Yeah, and he was definitely great. I just don't hear it talked about that much. I know his name, but it definitely wasn't something that was in the forefront for me, and I just don't hear it as much. But she put this in quotes. So it's simple because the main principles fit on a Post-it note. Jacob Lund Fisker, a Danish former astrophysicist who is often thought of as the father of the FIRE movement, told me. So somebody obviously must have shared that. That's how they think of him, as the father of the FIRE movement. I never thought of him that way, although he's brilliant. He wrote a lot. He was one of the early guys. I just never heard him referred to as the father of. Have you heard him referred to that way, Bill?
Not as the father, but I know that the extreme is significant. He lived on $12,000 a year and lived out of a van, if I'm not mistaken.
Now that sounded crazy to me when I first was exposed to the FIRE movement. So the frugality, the minimalism, that used to kind of bother me, and that was a turnoff for me as well. So the $12,000 a year seemed a little crazy, but luckily, I didn't stop there. I kept digging, and I found a lot of other different approaches.
Yeah, I mean, I think as we all would acknowledge now, the balanced approach is the healthy approach. You got to balance your physical, your mental, your emotional, your social health, your capital health, your financial health.
Oh, you'll burn out.
Yeah,
you'll burn out.
There are as many spokes to the health wheel, and finance is only one of them. And focusing on that one to the exclusion of the rest, you may die and have a bunch of money, but you'll be the richest guy in the graveyard.
LOL.
Can't take it with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guys, this has been great talking about this article today. I think we need to put this out there as a current events catching up
Yeah.
episode, maybe in between
Yeah.
other episodes. And maybe we should do more of this where we take something that's contemporary,
Yeah.
something that's a hot topic. This article hasn't even come out in print yet. It comes out
Yeah.
tomorrow in
The
the print
11th
version.
or Saturday or Sunday. So we're
Sunday.
recording this on the 10th. It comes out sometime this weekend. So May 10th or 11th. But I guess my final question would be, Bill and Amy, do you think this article is worth reading through to its entirety versus, yeah, you might be turned off by the headline. Yeah, you might be turned off by the original image or what someone else is saying. Was it worth the read? Did you get value from it? And would you recommend other people read the entire article?
I think it's worth reading. I think the only way to read it is to read the entire thing, because otherwise you're only getting one perspective of how somebody is making their money and retiring. And I think the whole point of the article is to show the different perspectives between kind of a younger generation and how they're retiring and spending their money, and then compared to late starters and what their experience is and how they're spending their money, and what maybe the values are between somebody who has started at 25 or 30 and somebody who started at 45 or 50. So I feel like if you don't read the whole article, you're missing the point of the article. And I mean, I can't argue with them with the cover picture. It's sensational to see this young guy in front of this Lamborghini, and he's got an Iron Man suit. I can't remember if that's in the picture they just, but I mean, come on, how cool is that? He's got an Iron Man.
And you know what? It might have gotten the attention of some younger people when it otherwise might not have. So there's some value in that. And it wouldn't be the one that I picked, but boy, did it get a lot of attention. And we have to remember that their goals and their priorities might be slightly different than ours. So if they wanted a lot of eyeballs on this, a lot of discussion and a lot of comments and a lot of readers, they accomplished that.
And even though maybe it may not be the picture that you would have chosen, it still got readers reading about you. It still got readers learning about your book. It still got readers learning about the FIRE movement who may otherwise never have laid eyes on it before.
Yeah, there are entry points for all of us, and we are individuals that share commonalities, is what I would say. And as long as you can use your filter, and we are adults, so we have to use a filter and filter out what you notice to be sensational and look at some of the meat that's in there, I think there are valuable nuggets, and that where you'll want to dig a little deeper. Hey, people do this. I don't have to work 9 to 5 for 40, 45 years and get the gold watch. People still think that they got to work till 65. Well, if you play your cards right, you don't. And even if you don't play your cards right, you've lived life, you've had the experiences we've had. And when you, as you say very well, Amy, as opposed to focusing on the late starter, focus on the starter. Get started now. Reach out to our community, reach out to you and your future organization. We're going to talk about Amy's new movement that she's creating for a community of women that support each other in achieving their own version of FI. Ladies, it's been a pleasure, as always, to talk with you about all things finance today. I want to thank our audience for listening to Catching Up to FI.
So, Bill, as you know, we cannot do this show without our amazing staff and the people that help us put this on. So our social media is Diana Falk, our editor, Fritz Bassard, and show notes are done by Sarah von Sternberg. We love them and they keep us going.
Yeah, I mean, this show wouldn't have the quality it has without our folks, our peeps. And we'd also like to give you a few calls to action for the show. We love our community, and we hope you love us back. If you want to support the show and what we're doing, you can do that at Buy Me a Coffee, which is a platform that allows you to virtually say thank you if you get value from our content. The link is in the show notes, or you can head over to our website at catchinguptofy.com and click on the Support the Podcast tab at the top right. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Catching Up to FI. We would appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star review so that our message can reach others.
While we are financial educators and I'm a financial professional that loves to teach, Our content is for general education and information purposes only. We are not providing financial, legal, or tax advice. Always do your own research or consult a professional before making important decisions.
We'll see you next time on Catching Up to 5.